I had never studied architecture or design or anything like that at all. Even the whole physics of the house, I'm surprised that it works because I literally just made it up.
Welcome to the Tiny House Lifestyle Podcast, the show where you learn how to plan, build, and live the tiny lifestyle. I'm your host, Ethan Waldman, and this is episode 254 with Carina Gibson. Karina is a multidisciplinary artist who started building her first tiny house in 2019 with absolutely no experience. The tiny house she created is beautiful and has a really clean, modern design. She enjoyed building her first tiny house so much that she actually has built a second one. Both tiny houses were built with lots of repurposed materials and done for very low price tags. Karina's online profiles are called Dirtbag Minimal, and in the conversation, we talk about what she means by Dirtbag Minimal and how minimalism and simplicity informs her building techniques, her designs, and her way of life. I hope you stick around. Hey, it's Ethan. I'm a tiny house author, speaker, and teacher, and I'm the host of the Tiny House Lifestyle Podcast. I've been making the show for free for the past 5 years. But one thing that you might not have known about me is that I love coffee. If anything I've written or produced has helped you on your tiny house journey and you're looking for a way to say thanks, a coffee is a great way to do so. Head over to thetinyhouse.net/coffee to buy me a cup. I really appreciate your generosity and kindness. The Tiny House Lifestyle Podcast will always be free, and I bring you a fresh new episode every Friday morning. If you are able to chip in, I really appreciate it. Again, that website is thetinyhouse.net/coffee. All right, let's jump into this week's interview. All right, I am here with Carina Gibson. Karina is a multidisciplinary artist with a main focus on building and creating sustainable structures. She started building her first tiny house in 2019 with no experience but a passion for learning and creating. She is devoted to living more minimally and mindfully and hopes this speaks through her art as well as lifestyle, aiming to promote environmental activism through her creations. She is half Finnish and half American and pulls from both backgrounds in her designs and life. Carina Gibson, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, you're very welcome. So tell me, take us back to 2019 and help us get inside your head. Like, what were you thinking? Why did you decide to build a tiny house?
Well, I have always been interested in building and construction. I guess it's always sort of fascinated me. And I had been living in Chicago for the past 10 years. So I didn't have the space or capabilities to actually get a bunch of tools and build things. And I came to visit my hometown in North Carolina. And I suddenly just sort of decided this idea had been cooking in my brain. And I just decided to jump on it. And the idea for the tiny house came basically from, living in a city or living anywhere really, paying rent and just sort of seeing what goes into that. And I kept imagining a different lifestyle where I could have a space that I've already created and paid for. And I'm really into DIY and all of that. So it kind of all just came together.
Nice.
I'm a pretty creative person, so I do think outside the box. And I think that was important in sort of visualizing what I wanted to do. And yeah, I just really wanted to be in control of my housing and that feeling, that safety of knowing that this is mine. I created this and I didn't have the funds for a house and I didn't want to buy a house.
Yeah.
And it just tied in with the whole aspect of environmentalism, minimalism, tying into, less purchases, all of that
All
going in
that stuff.
together, all that stuff. And building a tiny house allowed me to use my creativity and just experiment. I love experimenting and just jumping in head first. I mean, I could go on and on about why I started, but I guess that would be it in a nutshell.
Nice. And so how long did your build take?
Took me 2 years.
Okay.
And I was also working and traveling.
So you worked on it like when you could.
Yeah, definitely. And then when I had stretches of time, I would do a lot at once, but I burnt out quickly on doing those 10-hour days. I can't really do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Construction is requires a certain level of energy that I don't have for full-time construction either.
Yeah, it's tiring.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us about the house. Like, kind of give us the stats, like how big is it? Any special features? And I'm curious to just hear about how you expressed your creativity through the construction process. Like, are there parts of the house that you kind of feel like you got to really, do something different or express something?
I think all of it, mostly because I'll just start by answering that last question, that
Yeah.
I had never studied architecture or design or anything like
Mm-hmm.
that at all. So I didn't even, or engineering. So that even the whole physics of the house, I'm surprised that it works because I literally just made it up. I
Uh-huh.
was just like, I think that I describe, we all have strong suits and weak points. I have many
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
weaknesses, but I do think that one of my strong points is spatial awareness.
Uh-huh.
So, like for my day job, I do flower arranging sculptures and stuff. So,
Uh-huh.
I've always had this ability to kind of imagine space. And so, therefore, I think I was able to draw out a design just kind of by thinking, okay, well, like how much space here? How do I want this to function? So
Yeah.
just hand that kind of a thinking process, and really not any research. I mean, of course there was research, but not spatially. And like I saw a ton of designs online and I didn't like any of them. Like
Yeah.
some of them were okay, but none were exactly what I wanted. So then I just created my own, and everybody was like, no, don't do that. Just buy a blueprint. And of course I was like, no. And so
Definitely
someone tells
not.
me to do something, I'll do the opposite. But um, the tiny house is 10 feet wide by 24 feet long. So I
Okay.
decided to go wide as well. And that took a lot of research just
Yeah.
because I've been in 8.5, and it was like I get claustrophobic easily. So, like,
Yeah.
I'm someone that loves wide, big spaces. So,
Yeah.
to make a tiny house to create that feeling, I was like, I need to figure this out. So, I went wider. And of course, you need permits for taking it on the road, but I haven't really had to take it on the road. So that's not an issue yet. So I thought that there you go.
Yeah.
Not the biggest deal. And also I created a gabled roof,
Yeah.
and a part of it has a loft that above the
Okay.
kitchen and the bathroom, there's loft. But above the bedroom and above the living room, there's no loft. And people would consider that wasted space. But for me, again, the feeling, the spatial awareness, all that, like feeling like you have space is so important. And the idea of
Mm-hmm.
minimalism is like, I don't want tons of storage space everywhere. I don't want to have a lot of stuff. So the less
Right.
places you have
Right.
to, for me, space is more. Of course, the tiny house did get cluttered because stuff gets bought, and it's
Sure.
reality.
Sure.
I am not above anyone else. I am no monk. So I think that, like, I put and that the wideness let me put the bathroom and the kitchen side by side, and the
Yeah.
bedroom had to be on the downstairs because I didn't want a loft bedroom, which a lot
Yeah.
of people were doing, again, to save
Yeah.
space. So yeah, I feel like there's a lot of individual aspects about it, that being one. Also, in terms of my building style,
Mm-hmm.
it's completely completely like an artist. Like I had all my walls up and I had no idea what the roof was going to look like. You
Oh,
know,
wow. Yeah.
most people like I was like, well, now the walls are up and I need to decide the roof style.
Yeah.
And I took a few days and I was like, what am I going to, what? Like, and then suddenly I was like, okay, yeah, gabled roof, even though I didn't want it because I didn't want it to look so typically housey. I
Yeah.
wanted it
Yeah.
a little more modern, but I was able to pull it off in the way that I wanted to and space. So anyway, space wise, it works. So that's how I work. I don't plan really. I work step by step, whatever's in front of me. And so it's not necessarily the best way to work, but it's just who I am. So I think that that's kind of why I wanted to start my YouTube channel, was because I see so many builders, so many people in the construction building world that seem to me to be more type A, more organized, planning everything step to step. And of course,
Yep.
that's really important for many reasons. But I didn't let that stop me from building a house. And it let me, by the end of the build, I realized that I was not really identifying that much as like a builder, but more as an artist. And the fact that building a house can be art and we don't see it that way. And you think you have to approach it in this certain way, but you can just do it in a crazy unorganized way as long as you have some planning. And I think that that was a message I really wanted to get out to people. Like, you don't
Nice.
have to have your shit together.
Yeah, there's like a certain order to things that, like, you know, the plumbing has to go into the walls before you close them up, you know, or the insulation has to go into the walls before you put the walls on. But then there's a lot of freedom and ability to be playful and iterative in how you design and build. I mean, I did a podcast with a friend who's a designer, and we kind of did a debate versus design build and build design, because you can kind of do it both ways. There's, you know, arguments to be made that you should plan the whole thing out and like have it all on paper and then build it. Maybe that's a little more efficient. But then on the flip side, when you work the way that you did, there's the opportunity to really see how the space feels as you put it together and then decide, okay, I'm doing a gabled roof, for example.
Yeah, and that there's so much truth to that, because you are able to feel it out, and I do that with everything. But even the fact that, like, even though it is more efficient to plan it all out at once and do that, like, I try. Like,
Yeah.
this was me trying. Like, I was doing my best effort at planning
And planning. Yeah.
and I just can't. Like, like it would just fall through, and then I would just be doing things step by step. So, of course, there's obviously you need to do some things, like you need to put your t-shirt on before you put your coat on. Like, there's little things, but beyond that, you can be more creative than you think. And like, I switched my design like halfway through a lot, and I thought I was going to do tile, and well, not a lot, but like spatial. I'll be like, oh, the wall should, I wrote down on my notes that the wall should start at 42 inches. And then when I get into the space, I'm like, no, it should start at 38. Rewrite, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Tell me about how you approached like the windows. Did you salvage windows? Did you kind of decide on a package of windows and then design around them?
Because I was working on a budget, I learned that the best way is to salvage windows. So I went to a Habitat resale store. Not sure if you have those, but I bought all my windows, so 6 windows.
Okay. Nice.
And then designed around that.
Nice.
I had enough pre-thought.
Yeah.
To know that I should find the dimensions, you know, before I drew it. So of course it does take a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a beautiful, you know, French door glass entry door. Was that also a salvage, or did you have to buy that one new?
That was a combination of both. I call that the disaster door. because I really wanted that look of
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I don't like lattice work at all. So it was
Yeah.
really, because I like very clean modern lines.
Mm-hmm.
So Lowe's was selling these, they sold doors like that, but they were over $1,000. And then I found doors, the French doors that had this lattice work on them, like discounted because they had been dented for like
Okay.
$200. So I was like, great, I'm just going to cut off the lattice work. And
Oh.
so it turns out the lattice work was some type of plastic. So then I was like, well, I'll just unscrew these and put something else on. So I really learned how they make doors, because then I unscrewed that, like outside I did this, and then the glass
Mm-hmm.
fell out, and
Oh
then like all
no.
these pine needles got stuck on the glass. So then I had to get
Oh
glass
no.
back inside, screw it. And then, so then I had to figure out how to cut all the lattice work off with, is it a it's the type of, I can't remember the name of the saw, but it's like
Mm-hmm.
you're able to cut sort of perpendicular to your body.
An oscillating saw.
Oscillating, yeah.
Yeah.
So I was doing that, and I don't know, I probably made like 50 cuts, and I don't understand how I didn't cut the glass, not once. And
Nice.
then I had to like get pieces of wood. It was just, I could go on and on about that as well. It was, and then had to paint it. It was just like,
Yeah.
when that was done, I was like, that was a moment where you're like, yeah, you definitely paid for the
It sounds like a
labor.
labor of love.
Yeah. So you just learn all along. Like now I know a lot about how doors work in terms of how much they cost and what it means for, yeah, you just learn. You learn all the time.
Yeah. What was your total budget for the build?
I haven't calculated that because, again, I just started to keep track of the receipts, but I
Yeah.
just never calculated it fully. And what was happening is I was paying as I went,
Yep.
just with what I had in my bank account. But I can give you a rough estimate, especially
Yeah.
with my big purchases. Like I can tell you that I bought my trailer bed new
Okay.
from Tiny Home Builders,
Okay.
and it was 6,700
Uh-huh.
delivered to me, which
Yeah.
right now the price is over twice as much.
Yeah.
It's
The cost of
doubled.
trailers has gone up a lot.
So I built it right before lumber prices went up. So I built it right at the perfect time.
Yep. Yep.
Then of course my, stove was 1,200 or more, and so it, windows and door, everything was probably 1,000, but then all the wood, like I'm guessing around 20, probably a
Okay.
little more.
That's awesome. I mean,
Yeah, just right around
it's a
20,000.
beautiful space too. Like it doesn't it's that's a fraction of the cost of many of the tiny houses that I hear about and talk to people about. And it certainly doesn't look like it's a fraction of the cost.
Well, thank you.
You're
That's really
welcome.
good to hear,
Yeah.
especially
I
for my first try.
Yeah, I mean I also really like that modern, like you used a lot of plywood and just finished the plywood. And I tend to really like that. It's kind of a nice modern look, and then you balance that with painted white walls. So you get like the wood and the painted white walls as a contrast to one another.
That's a really typical sort of Scandinavian thing.
Scandinavian, yeah.
Yeah, lots of white, lots of
Yep.
light wood, and so that aesthetic just is in me and feels
Yeah.
calming to me.
Yeah, I agree. I actually did I built mine in Vermont, and we have a lot of like pine and cedar here. And I don't like how pine will yellow over time. So I actually did I pickled my wood. So you combine like white latex paint with clear stain, and you can paint that on. You can mix it however you want. You can make it more opaque or less opaque, and it just kind of makes the wood kind of that pale white look, but you can still
Mm,
see some of the wood through it, and then it stays that color rather than yellowing over time.
that's really nice.
Yeah. So you've decided to build a second tiny house.
Yep, I built a second tiny house.
Wow. You didn't learn from the first one not to do it. No, I'm just kidding.
When I ended my first one, like
You're
when I
like,
felt like I was done, I was like,
yeah,
not doing that
never do
again.
that again.
Then less than a year later, I I don't I was like I have seasonal work, so I work
Uh-huh.
like falls and spring summers because I do floral design. So
Yeah.
it was winter time, it was December, and so I can't sit still. So then I was
Mm-hmm.
looking on Craigslist just for fun, looking at trailers, not planning anything. Like I did
Yeah.
not, but then I saw a deal on a trailer, and then that was it. I was like, well, I have to get it. And so then I got it, and everyone's like, why? I'm like, what are you doing with it? I said, I have no idea, but I had to get
Wow.
it. And so then with that trailer, I created a vision. And because it was not a 19, and I'm about to post actually on my YouTube channel, I just finished editing my video for my build from start to finish.
Oh, great. Okay.
And I just sort of designed it based on what I had. And so, yeah, it was a 1972 camper trailer that had been sort of flattened or like
Okay.
everything taken off and the metal was left over.
Okay.
So it had to be, I kept researching online to see how much weight do those typically hold. And it was a little bit hard to get a number, but I was like, I don't really want to go over a certain amount. I think I
Sure.
was looking around 3 or 4,000 pounds. So I just made up a new design again out of my head and used
Mm-hmm.
super lightweight materials. I used 2x3s instead of 2x4s for studs. I used, I totally made up, it's not to code, but it's kind of to code.
Yeah.
And I use like styrofoam insulation because it's lighter. And I just used a
Yep.
lot of stuff that I had left over. I found free windows. And it's different because there's no bathroom, there's no plumbing. There is electric, but it's more like a tiny house studio because it's one
Nice.
room.
Yeah.
It's 7.5 feet by 17.
Okay.
So it's versatile.
Yeah.
And I just built it for fun, and that one cost less than 5,000 to build.
Full build. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how long did that second one take you?
I went really fast for a while, like in two
Yeah.
months it was dried in,
Uh-huh.
and then I took a pretty big long break for work, and then
Yeah.
it took me the fall to finish it again, but it's done. So less
Nice.
than a year, but
Nice.
consolidated like 5 or 6 months.
Nice. And what do you plan to use that one for?
So I had no idea what I was going to do. And then I fell
Mm-hmm.
in love with it because I thought I was going to sell it. And I'm
Yeah.
actually renting it as a studio space to someone who lives around the corner.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I'm really happy for how that worked out.
Yeah, I will definitely, by the time this goes live, I think your tour will have gone up, and we'll include a tour of that one as well on the show notes page for the episode.
Awesome.
Yeah. So do you have more builds in your future?
I do, but I don't know where, when, and how.
Okay.
Building and design is something that I love deeply, but it's kind of like I let it come to me. And I'm hoping to do something overseas, like
Uh-huh.
eventually building something more permanent but small, and to continue to research and understand small living, spreading the message about that, and researching more into different ways that people build in different cultures.
Yeah.
And yeah, just keep learning and connecting more with art, and then spending some time absorbing different things before I
Yeah.
go into building again. But definitely I just love building.
What would be your advice to a new builder, someone in your situation back in 2019 who's never built before but wants to take it on?
You absolutely can do it. It requires patience, stick with it and keep going.
Mhm. I like it.
And also I would probably say just it's one step at a time. Like if you start to think about the full picture, like if I had known how much work it would have taken to build my first tiny house,
Yeah.
it would feel a lot more daunting. So it's so much better when you don't look at the big picture. You just like, I just need to get the windows in.
Yep.
It's just step by step. And I think that's just good advice for life in general, because life will keep throwing things at you.
Yeah. I felt the same way about my build. And also, like, I did mine in 2012 to 2013. So it was so long ago that I barely remember how much work it was at this point. You just look at the finished house and you're like, oh yeah, this wasn't that hard. Like I could do it again. But while you're in it, it feels like it might never end. Like you feel
it feels like completely.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't know how many times I said that. I just was like, I'm never going to finish this. Like I kept saying that all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. You just have to focus on like one project at a time and just keep getting them done. And then before you know it, you've got a house.
Yeah. That's how it works.
Yeah. Yeah. So your channel is called Dirtbag Minimal.
Yeah.
Tell us about the name, what inspired it.
Well, my connotation with dirtbag is a little bit different than I think. It also has sort of a negative connotation in terms of like a sleazy person. But the way that I know dirtbag is more with sort of, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like it's the climbing sort of world that it's a person that can just like literally be dirty and not need a lot of things or luxury to be okay or to be happy.
Yeah,
And
totally.
and I feel like out of my friends and out of people that I know, like I'm the most sort of like gritty. Like I sleep in airport floors, and like I prefer to pee outside, and like I'll pee anywhere, and I won't wash my hair if I'm like traveling, and I like don't that kind of a dirtbag. Like I love to eat just like carrot sticks and like rotisserie chicken out of a bag, and that's like a perfect dinner. Like I don't like fancy dinner places don't do anything for me. Like I much prefer, eating with my foods out of the back of a truck. So that's kind of how I see dirtbag.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah.
And then I checked out some of the videos on the channel, and I like it because it's like there's tiny house content, but there's also kind of you're talking about your kind of worldview and your philosophy on minimalism and living. Is there a video? Maybe there's a video that you're particularly proud of that you want to tell the listeners about.
Gosh, I don't know if there's one particular video that I'm proud of. I do have to say that I'm proud that I'm sticking to just making videos that are true to me. I'm not being flashy or like, because there's so many people that do amazing videos and like really great editing and really expensive cameras and have the gear and know how to use editing programs. And I'm not a perfectionist. I'm the opposite. So I just kind of wanted to get stuff out there, and I can talk about tiny house stuff and environmentalism and minimalism and world politics for forever. So I decided that I didn't really care what people were going to say to me. I just wanted to provide this view that I haven't really seen yet, like this honest sort of view of like, I don't really know what I'm doing, and but I'm doing it, and here are my thoughts, and this video isn't that amazing. but I think that it's honest.
Nice. I like that. I think that there's a lot of value in providing that honesty and not trying to do it, not trying to hide a lack of depth behind like fancy production techniques.
Yeah. And also like I can watch a lot of those videos and get down on myself because those videos are maybe quote unquote better than mine, but at some point it's like that has to stop. Like you can't just continuously compare, and I'm going to offer something that other people can't, because that's just how we're all unique. And if I think my point was, I'm going to put this out there, and whoever this speaks to, great. And whoever it doesn't, that's fine. I just rather it, find some people that it really speaks to.
Nice. So you mentioned before we started chatting that you're in Finland now, and
Yes.
you go back and forth. So I'm curious, what do you do with your tiny house when you're away? Are you able to kind of shut it down and close it up, or do people stay there, or how does that all work?
Actually, I'm renting it right now.
Nice.
So
Okay.
I am actually in Finland for a year.
Uh-huh.
And I'm able to rent it out, both of them actually, which, because I know people there, and that's a little bit nerve wracking. It was really, really hard to do
Hard to
that.
leave your baby. Yeah.
It's my baby. That's how
Yeah,
it felt.
yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, how am I ever going to do this? This is my baby. Like, but then you just learn to trust.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
And what's your parking situation? Did you buy land? Do you rent land? Like where did you find to park it?
Like friends,
Nice.
there's like enough land out there that you can find the right people and
Nice.
put your tiny house sort of hidden. So I know
Nice.
that's a really hard one for a lot of people. And honestly, my only answer to those people is just like find somebody who you can put your tiny house out there,
Yeah.
and hide it.
They're out there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, one thing that I like to ask all my guests is, what are 2 or 3 resources? These could be books or YouTube channels or people or really anything that have inspired you or helped you along your journey that you'd like to share with our listeners.
It's hard to really pinpoint
Mm-hmm.
one thing.
Okay.
I will say that I was sort of inspired by Japanese, like, apartments,
Mm-hmm.
Japanese design, because in Tokyo, they have like super, super minuscule apartments, and the
Uh-huh.
way that they build things is super compact
Yep.
because the space is lacking. And so I felt like when I saw a lot of tiny houses online, they were like trying to make a big American house small. So they have this big
Yeah.
couch, a TV. And I was like, that's silly. If you have a small space, you have to reimagine the space.
Yeah.
So I got a lot of insight by looking through photos of how Japanese people have designed these sort of more like more like reimagining a space
Yeah.
rather than just trying to make this stuff a big house into a small space. That was really helpful.
Yeah, I like that. And I can see that in your tiny house, that kind of that center block. It feels like a module in a way, like you've got the kitchen and the bathroom, and then like you circulate around it.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, I feel like mine is still pretty housey. So I
Mm-hmm.
want to get more experimental in the future.
Okay.
But like, I think having that like I don't have furniture
Mm-hmm.
really. Everything's kind of built in. And I think that
Yep.
comes from
Mm-hmm.
the Japanese aesthetic. And then I guess the other thing I would tell you listeners is YouTube. Like whenever I was like, how do I attach this hurricane tie in the right place, or like,
Yeah.
how do I this, and you just can learn so much just by typing into YouTube. And I hadn't really ever really used YouTube before I started building a tiny house. I didn't think it was
Yeah.
for me. I was like, it's just to watch silly, stupid videos. Like, that's not
Yeah.
what I'm interested in. And then I was like, oh my gosh, you can learn so much. And now I'm like looking up, Spanish language and all these different kinds of things. I'm like, you can learn so much for free. This is amazing.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's true. Nice. Well, Carina Gibson, thank you so much for being a guest on the show. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Yes, I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to Carina Gibson for being a guest on the show today. You can find the show notes, including photos of Carina's beautiful tiny house builds, a complete transcript of the episode, and links to Dirtbag Minimal over at thetinyhouse.net/254. Again, that's thetinyhouse.net/254. I produce the Tiny House Lifestyle podcast every week and put it out for free because I want to help you and others like you along on your tiny house journeys. If anything I've written or produced has helped you on your tiny house journey and you're looking for a way to say thanks, a coffee is a great way to do so. Head over to thetinyhouse.net/coffee to chip in and buy me a cup. I'd really appreciate it. Again, that's thetinyhouse.net/coffee. Well, that's all for this week. I'm your host, Ethan Waldman, and I'll be back next week with another episode of the Tiny House Lifestyle Podcast.